I'm going to talk about a different continent now. I'm going to talk about Africa, where I've been working in the last 5 years. So I did my SEP in 2018, and I'll tell you a little bit more about my biographical background afterwards. But since 19, I started working with Africa. So what I would like to do today with you is to give you a little bit of another image of Africa. So I actually don't know what kind of image you have, but I guess based on the experience. So what we're going to do now, a few seconds, I would like everybody's attention. And you need to close your eyes and think about Africa. 2 seconds. Okay? So I'm really curious to know, and I hope we can talk about it afterwards, what kind of picture you have in front of your eyes if you think of Africa. So maybe some of you think of this, not of this particular woman, but this is taken from the food crisis in Guinea-Bissau. So maybe some of you think of poverty. So they associate Africa with suffering people and hunger. Maybe some people associate Africa with corrupted governments, political instability, chaotic cities, very unstructured, very inefficient, or with war. Or maybe someone associate Africa with exceptional attributes, physical attributes of some athletes. Or maybe safari. But in general, the kind of association, I would be very surprised if you had a lot of positive images in your head about Africa, because normally people associate with Africa negative things or problems, unsolvable problems, crises, tragedies. I just finished reading a book by Federico Rampini, who is a very famous journalist who lives in New York now. And he is an expert, a very high-level expert of geopolitics. He was an expert of Asia. And in the last couple of years, he became an expert of Africa. So he did a lot of studies, researches, and so on. And he wrote this wonderful book, which is called The African Hope. I honestly don't know whether it was translated into English, but I guess yes, because he lives in New York. But one of the first messages that he's giving in this book that I think it's really great is Africa is always a tragedy. It's always negative. Even if you look at the movies that get awarded, like there is a great movie that came out last year and won an Oscar from an Italian regisseur, and it's about a tragedy. Kids who are making their way through from Africa to get to Italy and then build a new life. It's never about fun, joy, humor, laughing, success. So I would like to talk about a happy Africa today. A happy and successful Africa. These pictures are taken were taken in different situations that I experienced with different companies in different parts of Africa. I'm going to tell you afterwards where I work in particular. So they are taken in Ghana, in Kenya, they are taken in Uganda. The one in the middle, where I am particularly happy, is in South Africa. I was there in August for 3 weeks. And these are the 2 ladies on the right and on the left side are part of my team, and they're helping me with the transformation. Africa is a continent with amazing entrepreneurs, brilliant minds, fun people, extremely eager to learn, and it's an unimaginable learning experience. I would have never thought that I would learn so much. And this is what I want to talk about. So first of all, I'm working in these 3 areas. West Africa, which is primarily Nigeria and Ghana. Eastern Africa, which is Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and Tanzania. And Southern Africa, which is South Africa and Botswana. In the last couple of years, I'm concentrating more on Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and South Africa. And let me tell you a little bit how I came to work into Africa. So I worked for 25 years in corporation, and I thought for years, this is what I'm going to do until I maybe die or I retire. And I really always thought, I don't understand people who are so critical with the corporate world. You get freedom, you do what you want, you travel around, you live well and make a lot of money, fulfill yourself. Then I reached a point in 2017 where all this disappeared. And all of a sudden I started to feel I'm tired, I feel drained, I don't have energy anymore. I have normally a lot of energy. I felt like I'm spending the weekend sleeping because I have to rest because I'm exhausted out of the week. And so I had a typical crisis. I'm not going to tell you what age it was, but I had a typical crisis. And so I had this inspiration to go to Stanford. I don't really know how, but I wanted to go to a program outside Europe. I'm Italian. There are a lot of good business schools in Europe, but I decided to go to Stanford, like very, very far away and totally different. So I felt I want to break the constraints, the rules, my world. So I went to Stanford. I met wonderful people. A lot of them are here. And thanks to these conversations, I'm going to fall now. Thanks to a lot of interesting conversation and content that I received, I started questioning a lot of things. I came back to Europe. I quit my job. Actually, the CEO has told me already before, you know that when you come back, you're going to quit. No. Okay, I came back. I quit. I had to pay back my program, but that's okay. It was absolutely worth it. And I started thinking about what is my uniqueness? What makes me special? What am I really good at? And I was looking for an environment where I can use my knowledge, but for good, for something good. So it was not about thinking about going into a nonprofit organization and just not making any money anymore. I mean, I'm honest, I like good life, so I still wanted to make money. But I wanted to make money doing something good and transferring my knowledge. So I came in touch with Stanford Seed. Stanford Seed is a wonderful organization of the Stanford GSB. The purpose of this organization is to support the economic development of Africa and India. Meanwhile, also in the Philippines, Indonesia. And I started working as a volunteer, just helping scaling businesses. The target group of Stanford Seed is scaling businesses. So businesses that are successful, they have already demonstrated their business model, and they're scaling, and now they need support to scale. So I started working with these companies, and I loved it. I felt like, oh my God, small companies. This goes so fast. Everything goes so fast. I love it, because one of the things that frustrated me really in corporate was how slow everything was. Authorization, and the next level, and the next title, and the next decision process. So I loved it, and then once I called the CEO from Botswana. It was a company I was working with, and I said, what do you think if I come and visit you? And I stay there 3 weeks. I'm going to pay everything. So, yeah, okay. I'm going to work for you for free for 3 weeks. He said, yeah, come. You're going to stay at my house. I mean, in Europe, no one tells you, you can stay in my house. I was like, are you sure? Yeah, you can stay in my house. It's going to be great. It was an Indian family, by the way. There are a lot of Indians in Africa. And I went there. I spent 3 weeks there. I absolutely fell in love with SMEs, so with scaling businesses, and with Africa. And I thought, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a consultant of strategic human capital for scaling businesses in Africa. And I started building the business. So I worked a lot with Stanford Seed. I was a coach, I was a consultant, I was a project leader. Today I am part of the faculty of the program for the seed companies in all 3 continents. And I have built such a network that I've worked with many companies. So right now, I have worked with around 70 companies, spread out in all Africa. So what I'm going to tell you now is what I do with this company and what I learned and what is so different with this company, but still an amazing learning experience. So first of all, this is one of the first things that I learned. I had to think in a different way. I had to change the image that I have about Africa and what I've learned to do, or the way I've learned to work in Europe. And I mean, I work for American companies, German companies, even though all over the world. And I learned pretty fast that if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. You have to change the way you proceed, you interact with them, you want to implement things. And there is a lot of prejudice also about the fact that in Africa nothing happens. So I met many people in Europe telling me, oh yeah, in Africa, yeah, it's all nice and fascinating, you go there. But then you explain things and you go home and nothing happens. Sure, nothing happens because you had to handhold for some time and help them execute things. And then they learn. If it were impossible to change things, I am absolutely driven by change. Sindor was saying this, I live in 3 different places. 3 months during the year because I love change. I get bored to stay only in the city. I get bored to stay in the same place. I travel all the time. I love change. If it were not possible to change things in Africa, I would have given up after 3 months. It is possible. It's just a different language, a different mindset, a different way of working. So what I would like to briefly tell you now is I will take some intercultural dimensions. Some of you maybe are very familiar with this. So let me tell you first what I do with the companies. So these are all scaling businesses. Scaling businesses are businesses that need to change the way they work. They need to change radically the mindset. If they don't change the mindset, they're not going to scale successfully. And this has a lot to do with skills, with organization, with the right culture, and with the right processes and systems. So what I do as a human capital strategy with the CEO. The CEO says, I want to go from A to B. Help me get there with the right culture, the right people, the right organization. And that's what I do. And with some companies, I stay with them even 2 years. There is a fashion company in Kenya. I'm wearing their clothes. It's called Vivo by an amazing CEO, a woman. I live with her when I go to Africa, so this is the way I work. I work remotely. Every 3 months I go to Africa, and I stay there 2-3 weeks. And I live with the CEOs of the company. I mean, kind of in the same house. And it's amazing because I don't only do a professional experience, but also a personal experience. So by doing this strategy and helping them implement the strategy, I was reading this study, which is the GLOBE study. The GLOBE study is a study that was done over 10 years in over 150 countries. They analyzed a list of intercultural dimensions, and they said, how are these intercultural dimensions lived in a different way in the different countries? And it went on for 10 years. And it was a pool of professors and researchers from many different universities, famous universities. The dimensions are performance orientation, assertiveness, future orientation, leadership, and collectivism versus individualism. I picked these dimensions because these are the dimensions where you see the biggest difference, and they are the most significant, where you see the difference between Europe, and I refer to Europe in particular, Europe and Africa. Performance orientation is existing in Africa, but they have a totally different understanding of the speed, how fast they need to get the performance. Because other factors are important, and the most important factor for African people, and I'm speaking primarily about East Africa, is collectivism. They have a very strong sense of community, relationships, and trust. This comes before performance. So if you want to get performance, and obviously they are very successful entrepreneurs, they know they have to make money, and they are very successful. But the access to influence the organization is relationship and trust. So what they need to feel is that they like you, they trust you, and they think you can be good for them. Then you can work with them, and you can get a lot of results. I was talking to a Kenyan CEO, one of the first clients I had, and he was describing how it is to work with Europeans. And he was saying, Europeans have normally one of these two attitudes. The first one is, I know everything. I'm going to tell you, you execute. I know. The second attitude is, you poor guy, I'm going to help you. You need help. So if you look at these two attitudes, none of them is eye to eye. And if you manage to be eye to eye with them, you can really change a lot of things. So what I'm doing with them, I'm revising the culture, I'm implementing new performance management systems, I'm working with the leadership team, I'm recruiting people, we are replacing people, but I have to speak their language, accept the fact that they are less future-oriented, they have a different understanding of performance, they are extremely collective in their thinking, not individual, and their leadership style is very consensus-oriented. So you cannot just say, you have seen this guy is not performing, just say bye-bye, and then you go. I mean, we've been waiting here forever. If you go there with this attitude, they're going to feel under pressure, and you don't get anything out of them. So anyway, right now I'm working with 6 customers. 4 are out of Kenya, 1 in Uganda, and 1 in South Africa. They're all very successful companies, different sectors. So they are in automotive, in water pipes, services, and the company in South Africa is a consulting company. And the message I would like to give you is that, and it's actually the next chart, I would like to encourage everybody to work with Africa or for Africa. I know we are in India, and actually we should encourage everybody to work for India. I mean, obviously, work for India, but if you have time, work also for Africa. And there are different reasons. Actually, we have to think about what happens if we don't work with Africa, if we don't support economic development of Africa. So I'm here today not only to speak about my amazing experience that absolutely changed my life. By the way, all my friends are saying that I am always in a good mood, I always have positive energy, and Sindor was saying, absolute transformation. I came to SAP, I was always in a bad mood. And it's almost impossible over there to be in a bad mood. But they changed me. People changed me, and this program changed, and Africa changed me. But I'm not here only to talk about my change. I'm here to say that what happens if we're not taking care of economic development of Africa? So the first one is geopolitical consequences. China is already going there very strongly. Is investing in infrastructure, making a lot of countries dependent on China, and China is seeing Africa as a potential market where there are a lot of opportunities. The Arabian countries, Dubai, Riyadh, Qatar, they are going in there. They are absolutely investing in there. India, there is a huge Indian community in Africa that is using all the African opportunities. And Europe, honestly, is sleeping. We're busy with ourselves all the time. The market is saturated, the age is going up. We have to think outside Europe. Europe is so conservative. Okay, second reason is demographic development, immigration. We're not going to solve the problem of immigration by integrating people, but we're going to solve the problem of immigration helping economic development in the countries, in the continent. And it's absolutely an illusion to say, I know that there are a lot of parties and a lot of people who are saying, oh, we have to integrate and so on, and they're going to pay for our Social Security because we're getting older, and so the African people are coming and they're paying for our Social Security. It's not true. Thank you. Because it's not going to make it anyway, so we need to help Africa there. The third the third reason is it's an amazing land of opportunities. People are very open, extremely entrepreneurial. It's very similar to India. They are a little bit behind, but there are a lot of opportunities from an economic standpoint. And by the way, I'm making now my money in Africa, okay? So 90% of my business is in Africa, and I'm living well. So it's absolutely possible to do very good business there. And the last one is you should not underestimate how important personal fulfillment is. I hear a lot of people in corporate world frustrated. They reach like the age 40, 45, 50, and they start saying, oh my God, what am I doing, and why am I here, and so on. But they don't do anything. I tell you, you're like a newborn if you start working for Africa. It's amazing. The energy is amazing. They're fun people. You can do so many things. It's like Greenfield. It's really a joy. Thank you.